One-ish. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of VCTV with your host, Kyle Ellicott. We're having a little problems backstage. Apologies for the technical difficulties and late start, but nonetheless, we're here and ready to have fun and talk about what's happening around the next generation of gaming and metaverses, or the metaverse as we know it. In terms of gaming, we're seeing a lot of activity and a lot of funding focused around next generation of gaming when it comes to play to earn and financial mechanisms coming into games, when it comes to NFTs and in-game or out-of-game assets and the transfer between, or some exciting acquisitions that we've seen Nike, Adidas, and many others make in the space, including new venture funds like that of Gala Games and $100 million with C2 Ventures just announced earlier today, along with a few other venture funds that may or may not have recently launched as well that we might hear about here shortly, and joined by some outstanding guests of the VCTV family today to share their thoughts and insights with each of you on what's happening in this space. I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott. Big thank you to the Token team and to Hasmic for making today's episode possible. Let's go ahead and introduce our guest. Helga, welcome back today. I'm going to have you kick us off with a little intro and background.
Oh, yes. Hi, I'm Helga Valfells from Crowberry Capital. We're a Nordic-based fund, and as you know, there's some great gaming companies in the Nordics. We've invested in gaming companies in Iceland and Finland and so far, but we've also looked at a lot of games in Sweden and Norway. Crowberry invests early at seed stage, and we really, our games thesis is first of all, we always go with a fund that is just in games, and B, we're always looking that they're using some sort of new technology, which is why the metaverse is very exciting, and also cloud computing is something that we've really been looking at and how you can use that more in games. So we're investors in a very exciting game called Mainframe, which has yet to be launched, but the A and B round were led by A16Z, who has a similar thesis to cloud native games as we do.
Awesome. Rock on. Looking forward to talking a little bit about that new technology. You mentioned cloud computing, also edge computing. We're seeing a lot of activity and interest in around the future of VR and AR. We've been promised virtual reality for many years, and this vision of that entertainment has pictured or painted for us as well. So very excited to hear more on your thoughts. Gary, welcome back. Grandmaster of Artificial Intelligence himself. A little intro and background for everybody.
Yeah, great to be here, Kyle. My name's Gary Fowler. I'm a serial entrepreneur and investor. Done 17 companies and 2 unicorns. I was on the original management team of Click Software, which was sold to Salesforce for $1.35 billion, and Eva.ai. I'm the CEO, president, co-founder of GSD Get Shit Done Venture Studios, premier AI and quantum venture studio. We love the metaverse. Last week I published an article on the metaverse in Forbes. And 3 weeks before that, another article about how life and work will be, what it will be like in the metaverse. So let's go on. It sounds great.
Awesome. I imagine it's going to be kind of like this. We see each other in windows of fours, kind of not yet avatar-ish, but nonetheless excited to hear more on your thoughts, Gary. Last but not least, Tobias, welcome back. A little intro and background for everybody.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure. We're basically an early stage fund completely focused on the blockchain space. We have actually invested in gaming 2.5 years ago, the first time, in a company called Splinterlands, which is now together with Axie Infinity, one of the leading players globally. Since then, we backed numerous gaming companies, both more on a AAA side, but also some are more in a sort of card area and a bit more towards personalizing metaverse, and also recently a game in a petaverse, which is an interesting gameplay if you're into docs. Happy to share a bit more later.
All right, Tobias, you can't just throw out a brand new term like that and just end and turn it over to someone else. Tell us a little bit more about the petaverse and what that all means as we start to unravel this picture of the next generation of gaming.
Absolutely. That's actually a really, really cool company. They're based out of Paris, out of France, actually. So it's a young, very experienced team, and they're trying to, or they're already doing it. They're already personalizing their metaverse, right? And they call it, it's called petaverse, essentially, from having a pet. And the company is called Dogami. And the interesting thing is you can have your own dog, which is your NFT essentially. There's an augmented reality component on top of that, which means that you can essentially play with your dog, and you can teach them 16 different tricks. And then also, you can train the dog, which kind of like makes your NFT more personal and sort of builds that whole personal metaverse in a sense, which I think will be very interesting moving forward. And of course, there's a play to earn feature on top of that as well with a token. So I think this is very exciting and very, very innovative in a way.
And 16 different tricks, not 15, not 17, not 20, 16, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, they're launching 16, I guess. Obviously, will be more in the future.
All right, excited to get and pick up our pets here very soon. Helga, take us a little bit back here in time. I mean, the next generation of gaming has continually evolved over the past 10 years aggressively. You talked about cloud computing. I mentioned edge. We're getting into metaverses. Paint us a picture of what you've been seeing in the Nordics around the evolution of gaming over the past few years to lead us to today's conversation.
Yeah, I think we've been seeing a lot. I mean, clearly, the big games hub in the Nordics is Finland. So I think Finland, were sort of leaders in mobile gaming, and I think the teams that sort of built all the great mobile games in Finland, like Supercell and Rovio and stuff like that, they have gone on to do more and more extreme things. And as I said, our closest experience is Mainframe, which will be the first MMO. Just complete, and it's called the mainframe because the new mainframe is the cloud. So that's the first MMO or massive multiplayer online game that is completely cloud native. Huge game, and it's which will be very exciting when it's launched. Big team building it, but it's a team of very experienced game developers that really want to build the next gen games, and that also means that I say cloud computing, but clearly it's edge computing and 5G and everything is going to impact that, so you can play a complex game on your mobile or on your desktop or on your laptop, and you don't need a really sort of high performance gaming PC to play it. So I think that will change accessibility to complex games for a lot of people. The other thing that I've been a believer in what was once called VR and then became sort of mixed reality and is now the metaverse for a long time, and have been waiting for that. And I think it's going to happen. And I think, the last sort of VR wave, which was around 2015, 2016, you kind of see some of those companies are still alive, and they have really developed and tooled up to be able to take advantage of the metaverse. So I think there are lots of games companies in the Nordics that were kind of tooling up around 2015, 2016, managed their funds really wisely, have really followed the trend. And I think, if you have like Oculus or Facebook, and now with Apple having some glasses and things like that, I think that's going to be an exciting trend. And Crowberry is in a company called Altent, who has the sort of fantasy game on Quest called Waltz of the Wizards. They've really ridden the Quest wave, but they also have so many tools, both using AI and all sorts of analytics about how you move in a AR space and in a VR space, and it really helps them develop games very, very quickly. And I think it's really interesting, all these tools that I think we haven't utilized on a mass scale yet, because so the metaverse hasn't scaled yet, but I think it's set to take off in the next couple of years.
That's what I was going to ask next, is when do you think that's going to happen? I mean, the data analytics behind some of these tools is phenomenal, or will be phenomenal. But when do you, Helga, really believe that this will start to take shape? I mean, we've been promised some of these, pieces or tools for many years. And as consumers, separating us as investors for a moment, as consumers, we have not yet caught up, or we've been yearning to adopt, and maybe the tech just wasn't to our liking. So when do you think that tipping point is over the next 5 years, or maybe is it further beyond? What do you see that as?
People are always predicting the next tipping point. I personally think it's coming very soon. It's also when you have full transparency, when you have lighter sort of headsets and things like that. I know, all the sort of hardware makers are working on the next gen of headsets, and they have evolved a lot over the last 5 years and are increasingly comfortable, increasingly mobile. I think once you have more transparency, so you can really truly mix AR and VR and go between the two worlds, I think it's going to happen. And it'll be really, really interesting to see what Apple comes with. out with, because just like, it's just like, the smartphone delivered everything we'd been waiting for 10 years. When we got the iPhone, all of a sudden, all this stuff that we were going to do on our phones from like 1999 till 2007 happened. And I think, again, all this stuff that we've been waiting for, maybe there will be sort of an Apple headset that will be amazing, and all the content that we've been thinking about and wanting to create since 2015 is going to happen once the Apple launches a headset. But it's also really interesting to see what Facebook is doing, and their headsets are improving and improving. So I think, the next gen Facebook headset will be really, or Meta headset, I should say, will be really, really interesting.
So
Sorry,
it's
I have to use Meta. Yeah.
That's right. It's okay. On our show here, it can be Facebook or Meta. We're all the same here. No worries. But it's interesting. There's a lot of conversation when it comes to gaming around headsets. But when we look at the world around us, there's displays everywhere. Do you think, Helga, from your experience, that and Gary, this is coming to you next, so get ready. Do you think we actually move away from headsets and start looking at displays? So whether it's a wall, whether it's a window, whether it's any kind of display anywhere, that we actually start engaging that way versus waiting for the next Oculus or otherwise headset?
Yeah, why not? I mean, we're already doing that. We're all looking at a display right now. So we kind of spend our life looking at displays around us. And I think these displays are going to become more complex and better and on demand. And maybe that's like the AR, the AR world, or that we can use our phones to sort of display something in a wider context. So I think that's going to be part of the metaverse. So definitely, I think, it's not just, internalizing and looking at hardware headset, but I also think so that's a really good question. I should have mentioned that. But I think, displays around us are also going to be very important. And we're already nearly there. If we think of how we use displays today compared to 10 years ago, and, what's it going to be like in 10 years' time?
That's a great question. Displays all around us, just constant displays.
Exactly.
Gary, similar question, but more from a societal standpoint. I mean, what does day-to-day life look like, in your opinion, around this development into a more digital life, a more metaverse-driven future?
It was interesting, Kyle. I had a conversation with a company last week, and the company makes wheelchairs. They're AR, VR enabled wheelchairs where people can, so they don't have legs or they can't walk, they can actually experience what it's like to have those, kind of like the movie Avatar, right? To have those limbs back again. So how's it going to impact us? How is it going to change our lives? I mean, everything's going to change in this hybrid world. I've just written 2 articles in Forbes, one about our work and life in the metaverse, and also looking about how to create a unicorn in the metaverse. So what we have in front of us is, it's going to be a hybrid existence for us. I mean, we started to make that journey a couple of years ago, Kyle, when we started on VCTV and Zoom, and we all started to make this digital transformation. But now we understand there are incredible things that we can do and experience in the metaverse, in this new reality. And, yesterday somebody asked me a question. It was very interesting. And they asked me a question about what is real. What will real mean? Well, real means whatever you perceive that to be, right? It's going to be a little bit different than anything we've experienced before. So we can physically be in other locations, but the real key is creating the society and the economy in the metaverse. So one of the companies we have, a Cosmic, and if you're listening, Anika, hello. Cosmic is a metaverse company, and imagine really being able to get rewarded. In that case, with Cosmic, it's rewarding things for doing good and compassion with brands and loyalty, that kind of thing. But we're going to create a totally new economies, and the great news is that's the journey that we're on. The great news that the world's really looking forward to this democratization of opportunity for each and every one of us. And when I first started to dive into this, the metaverse, probably a year ago, people thought it was kind of funny. I started talking, you and I talked about it, AR and VR, but that was the beginning, right? People say, well, when did Facebook get started in the metaverse? Well, when they bought Oculus. That started then. It's not like something that's just started. It's just we've now been we're willing to embrace this new life that we have. We're willing to embrace this new work that we have. So it's going to be pretty interesting. And the companies that participate and understand how to optimize it with NFTs, with crypto, with all kinds of things, all types of new parts of the economy are going to be able to thrive. The companies that don't embrace it are probably going to die because nothing good's going to happen.
Well, and some could argue on the Meta/Facebook, for those still working through the transition, all of us included here. Some could argue that that's, Facebook's always been in that business, and it was just a build up to what they are now today with all these building blocks. And Tobias, I want to come to you next. Looking at things from a very decentralized standpoint, investing in blockchain-based gaming for the past 2 years, what are we missing? Or what components are missing when it comes to the technology stack that is being created to build these games and future metaverses?
I mean, I think right now what we've seen, it's still very much startup driven, right? And that's obviously not a bad thing, but the problem right now is that building such, meta worlds or games, especially AAA games, what we've been seeing is something which takes a lot of time and a lot of resources. And now, which we can see in various different examples. I don't want to say any names now of projects, but development projects from a product perspectives are spread out across years, even tens of years, but they're already currently raising a lot of money at very high valuations on tokens, which then is a question if this hype and this interest into the specific projects can sustain over the development cycle to make it an actual product and to form it into an actual product. That's where obviously a Facebook, a Ubisoft, a Tencent, and Ubisoft got into the NFT space, right? And their video on YouTube, I think, got a 95% dislike, and it took it down, right? So they still did something wrong in a way that it didn't reach the public as much as they wanted. So I think startups doing a better job in terms of building the community and building the hype, but they lack the resources to essentially playing within such enormous development cycles in the short term, where I think there'll be a mixture driven by governments, so the corporates and startups.
So Tobias, I want to come back to Ubisoft real quick. There was, for those listening, there was a big announcement that they were going to get into creating an NFT marketplace with in-game assets and potentially moments, if I recall correctly. But that was going to start with one particular game, Tom Clancy's, one of his latest versions of the game, but that could potentially scale into multiple games where you could take assets in and out of games and bring them along with your journey of the avatar that you're building and you're living in a metaverse. So Tobias, why were people so disappointed in this? I mean, one of the biggest gaming companies in the space says, hey, we're going to embrace this technology and bring it into the world of gaming at scale that consumers have been asking or looking for. Why the pushback? Is it because maybe NFTs are just looked at as a certain way and not necessarily as a utility yet? What's your thoughts on that? And then Helga, I want to get yours. I feel like you've got an opinion on this too. So Tobias, you first.
No, I think before answering the question, I want to say this is 100% going to happen, right? And these big games are going to build economies where you can take your assets from an in-game perspective or from a metaverse perspective into various different assets, into very different places. And you will never leave essentially the Ubisoft metaverse, right? Or the Tencent metaverse. And potentially you could even use your in-game assets to, essentially lend money, right? Or take them in the DeFi space and, actually back loans as collateral. Like they will embrace as full-blown assets moving forward. However, what I think the challenge right now for Ubisoft was that it wasn't seen as that utility, as you mentioned, right? It was more like seen, okay, we need to rush into this right now because it's so hot, it's so important, everybody else is doing it, and we just try and do the first move advantage. But I think from a gamer perspective, it wasn't seen as actually what the NFTs does, right? It was a way for users potentially to make money. And I think that's what the pushback was. And I think that's where, the utility and the community in a sense was missing to build that on a very, very strong basis, right? Because in Axie Infinity or Splinterlands, that you have a community which is very much built on top of crypto native people as of now, but Ubisoft doesn't necessarily have that yet, right? Which I'm not saying that they should not go into that space, but I think they should probably like think it more through and build a community around it and bring that utility as ground case towards the game, right? And not the NFT. Like, it doesn't matter if it's NFTs or not, right? The utility is what matters.
Right. Helga, any further thoughts on that?
No, I was just thinking. Thank you. I probably can't explain it as eloquently as Tobias, and I'm sure he has a lot more experience on NFTs than I do. But I was just kind of thinking, first of all, it's kind of sad if there will be Ubisoft World and Tencent World. So it'll be not just like we have sort of the division of gamers, and if you really want to be able to move your assets seamlessly between games, it would be great that we wouldn't build little unions of games that you could go beyond the corporates, and maybe that's DeFi is the magic to that. You can take assets from Ubisoft World or Tencent World and sort of build some value on DeFi itself. So that's one thing, and I'm also just curious about how this will sort of translate into esports. Because once you can tokenize your assets in a game and you become a really great game player, maybe it won't be as much about competing sort of on the stage, but maybe it's more about competing within the game with the general public, and the best players win. So it's just for me, I think it will be an interesting development.
Absolutely,
Gary. You guys have thoughts on that?
Yeah, Gary, any thoughts?
No, I mean the situation. Well, lots of thoughts, but no, I was just thinking. I mean, it's just everything we're talking about is how this is coming together and becoming a real world, right? We're blending the worlds together, and it becomes real. And when you start to put money inside of that world and an economy inside of that world, things start to transact and things change, and that's what's happening today. So whether it's a game that's being rewarded with crypto or it's NFTs, it's becoming real. And it's interesting to see the evolution take place because it happened a lot faster than I thought it would happen. And it's just because there's so many different of the NFTs, the blockchain, the AR and VR, it's all coming together at one time. And, as the Germans say, the Gestalt, the sum of the parts equal the whole, that's where we are today. It's starting to come.
And Gary, with that being said, as we come to close here, any further thoughts or advice for those building in this next world of the metaverses, and where can everyone find you online to talk further?
Yes, sure. I mean, this is a great time in humanity. It's really the democratization of opportunity, and it's given people that really haven't had a chance. It's given societies that weren't able to compete and to become part of it. It's given us a chance to do some compassion and to bring love out. We're doing a metaverse project that talks about love and compassion, how we can really reward it. So it's a great opportunity for each and every one of you. Check my latest article out. It's Innovating in the Metaverse. It was in Forbes last week. My name's Gary Fowler. You can reach me on LinkedIn or Twitter or GSD, Gary at GSD.com, GSDVS.com. I'd be happy to speak to you. Go out there and get them and get involved before it's too late, because it's a great opportunity for each and every one of us. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Gary. Helga, closing thoughts, and where can everyone find you online?
Yes, very easy to find me online. It's Helga at crowberrycapital.com. And if you go to crowberrycapital.com, I also have my email and my phone number there. I think, closing thoughts is I sort of really just want to second what Gary said. It's really, really exciting times. I think, innovation can happen anywhere. And now that we're all decentralized, we can build things from wherever we are. And I think that's just going to accelerate now in the future. So I think it's the democratization of opportunity. Doesn't matter sort of where you're from, what gender or anything. And if you have a good idea, you can find funding and you can build it. And I'm just really excited for the next 5 to 10 years.
I think we all are. And Tobias, close us out. Closing thoughts, and where can you be found online?
Yeah. I think this is a tremendous opportunity, to be honest, and I think it's gonna change a lot of different industries as we've seen it. I think the key point is actually going away from all these buzzwords and going away from what an NFT essentially is, and going back to the utility and the actual use case of technology, because that's where we need to go in order to get mass adoption. That's where we need to go in order to make it interesting for the majority of people to get involved. We need to break down user interface and make it much easier to connect and to get engaged. But in the end, it will enable incredible revenue streams, digital fashion. We talked about gaming. We talked about the Metaverse. We talked about social mining. We talked about getting engaged, getting rewarded for being active. And that's been, sort of on a global scale without many boundaries. So I think now is the time to get involved, to understand it, to like do small things on your own. And of course, for all VCs out there, before you invest in something, like try it out, understand it, have a MetaMask, buy some land, do all that to fully understand what you're doing and how powerful this whole tool will be. And the same thing is for entrepreneurs. Think big, and you can reach me on LinkedIn. You can reach me on my emails, toby@blockchainff.com, and same thing on Twitter as well.
Awesome. As everyone said, go play the game, enjoy it, have some fun, buy some virtual land, and jump into the metaverse. But more importantly, get your pet. Do not forget to get your metaverse pet, as well. Get your pet, everybody. All right.
Launching in February.
All jokes aside, definitely check out the company, everybody. And please do reach out if you haven't already to Helga, to Tobias, to Gary, and myself. If you're building anything in these industries, we'd love to hear more. But do add context when you reach out, where you heard us, where you met us, what you would like to continue the conversation about. That being said, I'm your host today, Kyle Ellicott. We are all looking forward to speaking with you soon. Big thank you to the Token team and to Hasmic for making today's episode possible. Until tomorrow, take care, everybody. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.